Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And today, Mason Dodd, aka the Fantasy Flock, joins the show and shares his favorite ways to attack 2024 fantasy drafts, his favorite player target, his favorite stack, his favorite late round sleeper, and much more. Then we hop in a draft where chaos ensues. I'm Pete Overzet. This is the Deposit Kingdom, and this is the story of how Mason and I built the most unique team of hot best ball summer. Mason Dodd, aka Fantasy Flock, YouTube best ball extraordinaire. And today we are going to get inside his mind. How is he attacking these drafts on Underdog Fantasy? Mason, let's get right into it. Favorite structure in Best Ball Mania drafts?
Right now it's 3-5-8-2. I'm not going into any draft with I need this structure in particular. It's just where I find myself because I typically am grabbing an elite tight end, which I'm sure we'll talk about in just 1 second. If we're looking at the historical data, really you are incentivized to go around 8 wide receivers. I know some people have pushed 9 specifically for Best Ball Mania if you're trying to chase the spike weeks in rounds 16 and 17. But if I'm looking at just the late round wide receivers this year, and honestly the middle round wide receivers as well, once you get the Cortland Sutton drop off, I'm just not confident at all in taking those guys. So I'd rather take an extra guy early. That way I don't have to spend the extra roster spot at the end. So I prefer kind of just grabbing 2 quarterbacks at the end right now, going with Daniel Jones, and then around 18, McCarthy, if I have someone like Jefferson. So I can just go through, have maybe a unique quarterback there at the end. It used to be easier to go Fields. Now Fields gets drafted in every single one. And then 5 running backs, I think it's very easy to come by just because of the values that you're going to get around 7, 8, 9, those traditional dead zone guys that you would historically be going in rounds 4 and 5 in drafts right now and actually get decent price points on.
Yeah, and we're very similar in the onesies. I do a ton of 3 quarterback builds with 2 tight ends for a lot of the reasons you outlined. What I've noticed with my portfolio is it means I'm kind of light on elite quarterback, because if I do an elite quarterback, then I'm often ending up with just 2. I really seem to like to use that on the elite tight end, maybe the anchor running back in that range. Are you noticing a similar dynamic, or are you still squeezing in some elite tight end builds?
I am definitely squeezing in elite tight end. I think we'll talk about that. I mean, we can talk about it right now, but one of my favorite directions is once we get to rounds 4 and 5, just going ahead and pulling the trigger on a tight end in that range. Because if you look at projections that you're going to have for Travis Kelce versus the wide receivers he's going alongside, Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid versus the wide receivers like Terry McLaurin that are going alongside him as well. I've been saying it all offseason, but I think the way that tight ends are priced, I want to be surprised that the tight ends in those ranges straight up outscore wide receivers. And I personally, at least this year, once we get to round 17 and 18, I know people like Theo Johnson. I know Tucker Kraft is now becoming a viable round 18 play with him looking like he's not seriously going to be out. But it feels so uncomfortable taking the tight ends once we get that late.
Well, let's use this to segue to your favorite stack, because I have a feeling this might have to do with this tight end pocket here.
Exactly. So my favorite stack at the moment is Lamar Andrews. I think it's all about the price that you're getting on these guys. Going back to what I was talking about previously, I think this tight end range, I think Andrews straight up outscores the wide receivers he's going alongside, such as Terry McLaurin. Going with Lamar, I know typically with a Lamar build, you'd only be looking to go 2 quarterbacks in your draft. And I think if everything plays out how it should, where Lamar is the true a top 2 quarterback this season, obviously you're kind of betting on that with where you're taking Lamar, then it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go with a 3rd guy. But I really actually like going for the Lamar Andrews stack, and then at the very end of the draft, waiting until rounds 16, 17, going QB2, QB3, because I think it actually may open up a unique path where you can sneak a Lamar team through if Lamar misses a couple games, and most people only go with the 2 quarterback build while having Lamar.
And I can confirm that Mason is putting his money where his mouth is, because we were recently in a big dog draft, and I did just confirm you got to do the Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson at the 4-5 turn in that slow big dog draft. So that is a really nice one if you can pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about years past in Best Ball Mania, they used to go at the 2-3 turn, no?
They did. Last year, people were pulling up Lamar to the early 3rd because they wanted to get that stack, because they were at opposite ends. You would take Andrews, but if you didn't reach for Lamar, you weren't going to get him. All right, let's hop into your favorite player target. This can be regardless of where they go in the draft.
So favorite player at the moment, I've been getting, like I said, a lot of elite tight end. I really like the Andrews Kincaid range. But if we're not going there, Jordan Addison's been someone that I think is the last wide receiver in a tier where obviously the situation is dramatically worse now than it was last year. You have no Cousins. Jefferson is going to be healthy this season, presumably leading to significantly lower target share for Addison. You potentially have touchdown regression coming in as well. But if we take a step back, this was a wide receiver that crushed as a rookie. If you just look at objective measures, if you look at his historical comps based off his age, he was a Biletnikoff winner, round 1 NFL draft pick. And what we've seen over the past like almost 10 years now in fantasy, if you draft the wide receivers that had great rookie seasons, typically those are guys that could see massive pops in year 2. You clearly need a discount on Addison based off the DUI, based off the situation getting dramatically worse. But right now he's going as a wide receiver 5 in drafts. So I think that's like a perfect range of right before the teardrop happens. I'm fine going ahead and pulling the trigger. And if he misses a couple games, I'm okay with it. And especially if you're drafting in Best Ball Mania today, because the majority of the field took him in round 6, and all of a sudden you're able to now get him significantly later, I think it could give you leverage over the rest of the field as well.
Yeah, I was the guy drafting him at his old prices. That's how much I liked him. It was funny. I was working on a video that went on this channel where I did my favorite picks in each round, and Jordan Addison was my pick. And then right as I was producing that video, the news about his suspension comes out. And I'm like, I'm taking him out of here. I don't need to deal with the comments telling me he's no longer here. But to your point, now he's much cheaper. He will slide big time in drafts. And I think similar to the kind of the Rashee Rice, dynamic where each subsequent day where we don't get definitive suspension news, he becomes a better and better pick. We have seen so many times that suspension stuff get pushed to the offseason, to the next year. If he doesn't get suspended, he is an absolute smash where he's going.
Yeah. And obviously I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea what the hell's going on, but from my perspective, it seems like the NFL is really only going to suspend a player if the press is so bad that they kind of are forced to, and the NFL just cares about their image. And last year, Addison had the driving 140 miles an hour. You had the Chris Olave driving incident the last year as well. And I think the NFL PR team kind of just sweeps it under the rug. I mean, even if Addison is suspended, I don't know when it happens. I don't know how long it would be. And I think that there's a good shot that it doesn't even happen.
Yeah. And it's like, one thing we've all realized specifically in the past year or so, the Underdog ADP is really efficient. Drafters are really sharp. Guys are generally priced where they should be. And so it's hard to find discounts in guys like Rashee Rice and Jordan Addison, where you have the specter of a suspension, making them more palatable from a price perspective. You could get 2 to 3 rounds of value if that suspension doesn't come out. And sure, if you're playing in a smaller tournament, I get it. You want to steer away from that risk, but we're trying to beat out hundreds of thousands of people in Best Ball Mania, and getting the equivalent of a 5th round pick in the 8th or 9th round might be a way to supercharge your team.
Yeah. And I would say with Addison as well, it's like the perfect example of a wide receiver that matters in underdog drafts, where like in a regular, like shallow redraft league, he probably doesn't. I know a lot of people that watch my content just kind of play in like ESPN leagues where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. There, Addison, you draft him at wide receiver 50 and he turns out to be the wide receiver 30. Who freaking cares? Doesn't matter. But on Underdog, if you take the wide receiver 50 with how hard it is to come by wide receiver production, he gives you a couple spike weeks when you need him, and he turns out to be the wide receiver 30 this year. It's like a massive, massive pick for the format.
All right, favorite galaxy brain idea, maybe something a little unconventional that you like doing in drafts right now?
So bully tight end is something that I have never done before, because I think it has historically been very bad where the top tight ends go round 1. Like, I mean, I've seen this, whether it's on FFPC, you see it on, I saw it in Underdog years past, where people think going Kelsey, Andrews going to give you some significant edge, and all the math says is just absolutely horrendous. However, going back and looking at where these tight ends are priced this year, like looking at Sam Laporta right now, coming off a rookie season where he dropped 193 points, going back-to-back with Zay Flowers, who dropped 167, going back-to-back with Michael Pittman, who dropped fewer points, and Sam Laporta was a rookie tight end. Like I said, I think Laporta outscores some of the wide receivers in this range. So I don't mind going with one of these elite tight ends when now they're priced in rounds 4 and 5. And like I said, I think they can outscore the wide receivers here. And then actually following it up with another respectable tight end, such as David Njoku, say, once you get to the 9th round. Because I mean, if you go through and look at the wide receivers going next to David Njoku, it shouldn't be surprising if Njoku goes out and he outscores Romeo Doubs. He outscores Joshua Palmer. And then I don't think you have that kind of tight end depth through the rest of the position, where in years past, I've kind of felt comfortable taking tight end in round 17, in round 18, or maybe this is a me issue. And I'm sure a couple of these guys are going to hit, right? Maybe it's Jelani Woods, maybe it's Tucker Kraft. I don't know. But because I don't know, I feel very comfortable just going and selecting 2 tight ends inside the first 10 rounds. And if you actually look at the historical data from it, if you take a tight end in round 4 or 5 and then take another guy in round 9 or 10, it's not bad, specifically once you get to the playoff tournament as well.
Yeah, and I think how you describe doing it is my preferred way to do it as well. I've been doing it a lot with Brock Bowers, but in a very similar range is Njoku paired with one of those guys. And I think it's sharp this year for a couple of reasons. One, just like the playoff dynamics. One thing we've seen over the years, you mentioned the Mark Andrews year. We had the Laporta year last year. We had the Kittle year, the year Pat Kerrane won. Everyone shows up in the finals with the same tight end because they are the differentiator that basically wins you your pod group. And then everyone shows up to the finals with the same guy. So if everyone shows up to the finals, let's say Trey McBride is the guy who crushes, and then you also have Njoku, and you show up and no one has Njoku because he didn't do anything in those weeks, you still have a guy who has access to a huge ceiling, but is underrepresented in the field. And that's where I think it could be really potent.
100%. It's just leverage where people aren't doing it. And I don't think you're sacrificing too much with your median projection.
Yeah. And I think the other way I would frame it for people who are skeptics of it is the way I think about if we get the truly elite tight end season, what we've seen from a Kelsey, what we saw from Jimmy Graham back in the day, that guy's hitting your flex regularly. And the second guy's your tight end. It's like Njoku's my tight end score, unless you use my Trey McBride example, because I love Trey McBride. Let's say he has that legendary season. He's going to be hitting your flex a lot if he's putting up those 20+ point games. And then Njoku's there too. So I think it can work if we get one of those legendary seasons from these tight ends. Let's get one more here. Your favorite late round dart. You get to the 17th, 18th rounds. You're trying to get a little frisky here. Who could surprise?
So not super unique. I mean, he has been borderline getting drafted all offseason. I do think that Tank Bigsby, however, based off what this coaching staff has said in Jacksonville, he is kind of locked in to the second role there. And they also referenced him potentially getting short yardage work. So I wouldn't be surprised if you get some random usable weeks for Tank Bigsby, just with him scoring a touchdown or two throughout the course of the year. And at the same time, I think he has the clear path. If ETN were to go down, then all of a sudden he does have a role. But I mean, this is something that I want to ask you about, because I get to round 18 in underdog drafts, and I whiffed so hard on Puka Kyron. I drafted like 400 teams last year, and I took Puka Kyron and a total of 0. And I was arrogant about it too. I was saying, oh my gosh, Puka has, why the hell are people drafting Puka? And he turns out to be the best rookie wide receiver of all time. So I think I need to go to therapy. I think I need to figure out like how to get over this, because I get to round 18 and I just like mentally shut down. I have no idea what to do.
Yeah. One I've been doing, it was funny. I did a style of video like this with NBC's Kyle Dvorchak, and we took Tank Bigsby in the last round on a Trevor Lawrence team. And I really liked a point he made where he said, if Travis Etienne goes down, obviously Tank Bigsby becomes the starter, but they're also probably going to pass a little more too, like take a little off the plate there. So you get the new starting running back and you already have the Trevor Lawrence and whatever stack. I love how kind of like the game theory dynamics of that could essentially just supercharge every single pick from that team if one thing happens.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any favorite round 18 guys you've been going with? I know that right before we hopped on, I saw Tracy, I think, got carted off. And then obviously Eric Gray showed up in the preseason. So maybe Gray is someone that's worth looking at.
Yeah, Gray looked really good there. You know, some of the guys that I'm waiting for kind of a really clear running back guy to open up. Some of these rookie wide receivers who are turning heads at camp are a little interesting to me. A guy like Johnny Wilson, who every day I log on to Twitter and the beats can't stop talking about him. I'm like, Johnny Wilson on Jalen Hurts' team seems pretty nice right now. All right, Mason, I hopped us in a best ball Mania draft. We got the 1-6 here, which in general, I kind of like being at the middle part of the board. We can kind of read the room, grab some values. The goal here, we had you fill out this questionnaire. I don't want to force it. People get really mad if we try to force it. Last week with Reed, who won BBM4, we took AJ Brown 101 and people lost their minds. So we're going to try to draft the best possible team, but we're also going to try to hit your preferences as much as possible here. How you feeling about the 1-6?
Absolutely love it. I mean, here is a range where you can lock down just a ton of wide receiver points with either Jefferson or Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that's something that I've kind of compared like drafting wide receiver to eating your vegetables in underdog drafts, because I don't really want to do it. Every single round, I'm like, oh, I love Kyron Williams round 3. Oh, I love Sam Laporta at round 4. But you're going to be forced to get wide receiver production, you know? So I think when you get one of these selections at like pick 6, it's so easy to start off with Jefferson, St. Brown, and it allows you to deviate a little bit more later on to the more exciting players in my mind.
Yeah, I am with you on that one. We are on the clock here. Amon-Ra St. Brown, is that your pick here?
That's it.
Let's do it. I've actually been really excited to get Amon-Ra lately because remember early in the offseason when people were a little worried about the Jefferson holdout and Amon-Ra was going ahead of him. And I kept getting a ton of 1-6 slots then. So I had so much Justin Jefferson early. And as of like 2 weeks ago, I had like 3% Amon-Ra. And so anytime I can get Amon-Ra now, I'm like, I got to balance this out.
Yeah, that's funny. Who are you preferring here once you get to pick 9? Is just an auto lock AJ Brown? And are you ever taking AJ Brown ahead of Bric or Bijan?
You know, in this spot here, if I was at 9, I think I'll take Bijan here.
Oh, for sure at this draft right now. I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, like in like a regular draft, the 7, 8, 9, are you just kind of staying in line with ADP, or do you have a preference with those guys?
It's a funny that you asked that one because this is like the one spot I was kind of bowling ADP, and I was taking Garrett Wilson over AJ Brown a good bit. And then I got a little spooked in my overconfidence and I've been balancing it out. But yeah, I was for a long time taking Garrett Wilson there. How did you handle that? The back?
I'm just right in line with ADP there. The only quote unquote boldish take that I had previously was Bric over Bijan, but now that's not anything special. Their ADP is kind of neck and neck. But yeah, no, I used to just exclusively go Puka over Wilson, and I know a lot of smart people are going Wilson, like based off just people in my live stream hopping in, because I draft with people every night and I kind of can tell who's tuned in, who knows what they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
And I noticed a lot of them going Garrett Wilson over Puka Nacua, and I was just reluctant to do it. So I was taking Puka all off season. And then so once the knee injury happened, I was like, oh, well, I wish I could go back on that one.
And I think the simplest thing for me is like AJ Brown is definitely, I think, a safer bet, like a higher floor. But if one of these guys is like the 1-2 next year, I think it's like Garrett Wilson, right? Where it's just everything clicks with Rodgers. It comes together. He has that like Devontae Adams-esque season with Rodgers. And then everyone's like, all right, let's move this guy up. I think that's where the excitement comes. So it's kind of just like a risk tolerance. Like how much are you willing to go into the unknown? But we're about to pick here, Mason, at pick 19, our second round pick. I'll look at the board here by ADP: Nico, Barkley, Olave, Waddle, Achane, Cooper Kupp. Which direction do you like to go here?
If we are going to try to go with bully tight end, we probably want to grab another receiver. I don't have a massive preference between any of these guys. It's not going to be a super unique build regardless the way that ADP lines up. So I'm fine with Collins, Olave, Waddle, whatever you want.
All right, let's just do it by ADP. We'll take the top guy here in Nico Collins. I feel like you and I are very similar. People want these big hot takes in the second round, and I'm like, I can make cases for all three of these guys. We didn't really even have any playoff correlation considerations either. So yeah, I want exposure to most of these wide receivers. And when people are like, I don't get why Devontae Adams is going here, or Debo should be going earlier, I'm just like, go ahead. Like, it's the second round. Shuffle these guys up however you want.
Yeah, that's what I put out a video early in the offseason. And I just said, like, round 2 is disgusting or something. That was like the title of it. And it's because, like, you get to round 2, every single night someone comes in that's just like stepping back into fantasy football on my live stream going like, why is Drake London going that high? And I'm like, oh, okay. Are you really excited to take Chris Olave over him? Like, yeah. Somebody has to go there, you know?
Do you start like, I assume you're going to max BBM. Are you starting to care about your combos of like, hey, I have Nico on so many Amon-Ra St. Brown teams. Maybe I want to mix that up. Don't care. Yeah.
Like I'll think in terms of the context, especially in Best Ball Mania drafts of where these guys were going all offseason. So considering the fact that Olave was more so going towards the top of the second round, where now he goes near the later half, like I'm definitely going to be targeting like a lot of Chris Olave there late round 2, just because naturally in the overall tournament, I'd assume that there are less like Lamb Olave, Tyreek Olave combos. But in terms of like the combos that I've drafted, I don't particularly care about that. I more so care about the player combos from an overall tournament aspect.
Yep. Yeah, I'm the same way too. I think maybe at the very end of the season, I like doing some portfolio reviews, and if like any random thing jumps out of like, why wouldn't I have these? But to your point, so much can happen naturally. Like we're going to start to see, it didn't happen in this draft, but Jahmyr Gibbs is going to fall in these drafts. And you're now going to be able to get Jahmyr Gibbs with some of these early wide receivers. But we are on the clock. We started Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Nico Collins. We got a bunch of wide receivers here by ADP: Ayuk, Metcalf, Diggs, Dell, Pittman, Pacheco. How do we play this third round?
We have to take Ayuk. I don't think there's an argument for anybody else.
Let's grab Ayuk. We get him sliding. It seems like the most likely thing is he stays in San Francisco, which we then get him correlated with Amon-Ra, when most of the Ayuk Amon-Ra correlations in the contest are from round 2 prices, and we sneak in Nico Collins with him.
That's the thing. This trio of players will be low owned with you're not sacrificing any upside. And I think it sets us up perfectly to be able to take advantage of values in middle rounds.
All right, so this would be like in a perfect world. Like if we could somehow pull off Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson with these next 2 picks, it would be a windmill, but it is a tricky part of the board to try to do this. Is it possible to get your premier stack in this draft?
No, it's not. I mean, the best, I know some people like going Andrews, then Lamar, because if you miss out on the stack, you don't have a naked Lamar at that point, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't matter which direction we would go. And you would be more likely, in my mind, in my experience, to get Andrews in round 5 if we were to go Lamar in round 4. But at this ADP, there's no reason to just go through and risk it.
Yeah, so Lamar's ADP is 47 and Andrews is 49. Earlier in the offseason, Andrews had like a 53, 54 ADP and would sometimes be in the 5th, and you could maybe go for it. But at 47, 49, they're like literally anchored to the 4-5 turn. That said, like, do you ever take Andrews by himself and you're just like, you know what, if I don't get Lamar, I still like the upside for Andrews this year?
Oh, for sure. And I'll do it vice versa too. If I'm at the 4-5 turn, if I take Lamar or Andrews and the other one doesn't make it back to me, it's not the end of the world, because especially with Lamar's rushing upside, I think you could see like a world where in week 16, you get 2 rushing touchdowns from Lamar, where you don't necessarily need to have that extra Baltimore Raven to advance. So I'm fine with having like Lamar with only Bateman. I'm fine having Andrews by himself as well, because like I said, I think the tight ends there outscore the wide receivers. So I think you're just getting a ton of value with the median projection almost regardless, and you're not sacrificing much upside. But here I was hoping that we were going to get Laporta or Kelce in the middle round 4, but it is what it is.
Yeah. A bit of a tight end run here. Laporta goes into round 3, and then McBride, Kelce snap off the board early round 4. What is your, everyone defines their elite tight ends differently. I've been kind of using a top 7. What is your cutoff for your elite tight ends?
My cutoff is Kincaid. I don't consider Pitts Kittle.
Gotcha.
Unless if Ayuk was dealt, then I would think you throw, at least for me, I'd throw Kittle in there, but I haven't considered Pitts Kittle. I haven't drafted much Pitts this year, have you?
A decent bit, yes. It's kind of like the Garrett Wilson leap of faith thing for me. Do you want to grab Mark Andrews? Is there
No,
another
we
path?
go Josh Allen here.
Josh Allen, okay.
I love it. You have to go Josh Allen here because we have the shot to get Kincaid on the way back around. And also, if we whiff on Kincaid, we can get a respectable Keon Coleman around 7. So if Josh Allen falls this far to round 4, he's essentially an auto pick for me because you can potentially get that stack at a value. Whereas like taking him at the 3-4 turn is going to be a little bit tougher because you kind of have to force Keon Coleman around 6 at that point if you're going to go for it. But Josh Allen's had 4 straight seasons, 390 plus fantasy points. If you look at implied team totals this year, the Bills are supposed to be, I think, the 5th highest scoring offense in the league. So with the preference of doing the 3 quarterback builds, but it's if you get one of these elite quarterback values, then you're willing to or would you still like to do 3 quarterbacks with Josh Allen? Oh, so it just kind of depends in terms of what the rest of the board gives us. So say we go Brock Purdy or Jared Goff, right? Then at that point, I'm for sure only taking 2 quarterbacks. But if we miss out on that tier QB, I'm going to be completely fine waiting until round 17 and 18, taking 2 quarterbacks at that point. Because then I think like if you just do the game theory of it, where the rest of the field that takes Josh Allen, hypothetically, they know, okay, we took Josh Allen around 4. We should only be drafting 2 quarterbacks. And then all of a sudden, Allen misses 6 weeks of the season. None of those Allen teams advance. And we're able to sneak an Allen team through for the final 3 weeks. And he could potentially be the highest scoring overall player in fantasy. I think that there's a unique path. And I think the round 5 cost the round 4 cost is low enough, unlike where you had to take him in round 2 last year, where you can get away with using the 2 roster spots, specifically if you wait till round 16, 17, round 17 and 18. But I mean, if we find a Jared Goff value, if we find a Brandon Ayuk value, I'm completely fine only taking 2.
Well, this draft has been hilarious. The 4-5 turn could have had the Lamar Andrews double tap. They take Kincaid. Lamar comes all the way back to us. There are some interesting values on the board. Pickens really falling. Which direction do we go here? I
think you have to go Pickens.
Let's do Pickens here. I had not been drafting a ton of him at his price, but at 5-6. And this is like, what's so fun about this is still like lingering Ayuk trade ADP fatigue. Whereas if that trade doesn't happen, now we're getting Ayuk at a value in San Francisco and Pickens at a value as the alpha in Pittsburgh.
100%. I think outside of the possibility of like Kincaid making it to us in round 5, this is like one of my favorite underdog starts at the moment, because it just gives us so much flexibility in what we have to do later in the draft, where we don't have to take some of the disgusting wide receiver values once you get to rounds like 9, 10, 11, 12. And instead, we're able to go through, we're able to deviate to some other positions that I think are better picks in that range, while we didn't sacrifice too much production at the beginning of the draft.
Yeah, and what is so fun about when you stack uniqueness through ADP values, it like compounds, right? Like we already talked about, these 3 at the top are hard to get together. And now you get Pickens, who makes it even harder. And what's so funny is a lot of the Pickens teams will have done it in the 4th round. How many of the Pickens teams will also have Josh Allen on it? It's basically impossible, because Pickens doesn't really fall like that. So it is really fun of how quickly a team can get mega unique just by scooping up value fallers.
If you look at 99% of my drafts, if through the first 5 rounds, 80+% of the time is just whoever's high scored in ADP. Unless it's like a really inline draft where everybody's just staying with ADP, then you're kind of forced to be the guy to go through and maybe take T. Higgins at the 3-4 turn. That way you have a unique T. Higgins and Garrett Wilson combo or whatever it may be. But if you're in a wild draft where you just consistently have like George Pickens falling 10 picks past ADP, I think it's very simple that through the first 5, 6 rounds, you take the values that have fallen, because you will have a very unique team with a lot of upside, and then you fit your roster construction through the rest of the draft for it.
Yeah, I did a video earlier on the channel, and it's a thing I've done before where I call it the God take the wheel strategy, where I let ADP make the first 5 picks. And you can build really good teams. For a lot of people, that would be super scary of like whatever. And I would say outside of getting 2 elite quarterbacks, like I would not want to get double tapped like Lamar and Allen.
Yeah.
Any other start, you can make it work.
Oh, and 100%. I would say it's scarier to deviate. I would say it's scarier to go out on a ledge and start drafting guys 10 picks ahead of ADP consistently, because then you're going to be duped. I mean, we can talk about, not duped, that's the wrong word, but we'll talk about it in the 1 second after we make this.
Yeah.
Montgomery going up.
Montgomery with the Gibbs stuff. Kittle came off the board. Is this your chance? You do your bully tight end with Kyle Pitts, or do you see something else going on here?
We can either go Pitts. We can go Pitts if you want. Kenneth Walker's getting some buzz for the 3rd down role there in Seattle. I'm fine with Pitts or Kenneth Walker, just anybody but Hollywood.
Yes, I'm with you on that. We still have 15 seconds. Let's talk it out real quickly. Do you want to try like the bully thing with like the Pitts Njoku, or does that thesis kind of go away for you since you don't view Pitts as a elite?
No, I think we can go for it. Let's go.
All right, let's do Kyle Pitts. Let's see if we can pull this off here. Again, it also kind of falls into our thing of stacking another ADP value. Kyle Pitts generally going 5-6 turn, ADP of 60. We get him at 67. Continuing to get players that are really hard to pair together in the middle of the board. So this is the all value team, Mason.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've talked about for years, specifically in the large field drafts on Underdog. Like whenever I'm drafting the high stakes drafts on Underdog, I don't care about it. But like in Best Ball Mania, I'm always trying to think of like, how many times has this combo been drafted? And I see people going about it the wrong way. At like pick 12, going through and like reaching on 2 guys that may end up being taken together at like the 2-3 turn. Like for an example of that is in a draft yesterday, I saw someone go Jonathan Taylor to Devon Achane at the 2-3 turn. Whereas you think at Best Ball Mania drafts earlier in the offseason, when Achane went at the beginning of round 3, Taylor would make it to the end of round 2. You're like, man, you just took Jonathan Taylor Achane at the 1-2 turn, and you're going to go up against another team that also has Tyreek Hill. So I definitely think people go about it or the wrong way sometimes, but I do specifically in the early rounds like thinking about like how we can avoid some of the most commonly owned pairings. And I think like a great example is just taking Brains and Ayuk in the middle of round 3, where you look at the course of the entire window that this tournament's been open and how many drafts has Ayuk fallen this far.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't galaxy brain that stuff. The one, because you have to be so careful of the dynamic you just described. Like an example of one that's a little more justifiable to me would be like, say you wanted to take Puka with Malik Neighbors, and like Puka was fixed at the 1-2 turn. Neighbor has been in the middle, and it's like there are basically no Puka Neighbors teams with someone sneaking in an extra pick. So then you're actually getting a unique combo, but you run the risk otherwise if somebody had gotten it before, basically. Yeah,
no, like Jahmyr Gibbs, Mike Evans. Like I completely agree if you can go through and reach on a combo, but you have to think about the course of the entire tournament.
We are on the clock. Hollywood falling, Kyler Ladd, Aaron Jones, Jameson Williams, Najee, Ferguson. What do you like?
I'm fine with Hollywood Ladd or Aaron Jones.
Hollywood Ladd or Aaron Jones. You know, I know we said no one, not Hollywood last, but I feel like we're getting a round and a half discount here. We have a little correlation, week 17, opposite George Pickens there. This seems like a spot to grab a Hollywood share. He hasn't been a target for me, but I'll grab one at 78. What do you think?
I think at the 4-5 turn, he was the worst pick in drafts this year. If you look at his yards per route run, you look at what the Chiefs paid him this year, I think it was horrendous. Here with the injury discount, getting a mid-round 7, I think it's fine. One thing that's I want to get your opinion on, because I know people have asked me about it a lot in the streams, is what do you think about the Chiefs? And I know there are a couple other teams playing like 3 games in a span of 10 days for the weeks 15, 16, 17.
You know what? It's so funny. That's the first time I've heard it. I know in general, like those Thursday night games can get spooky as far as the short weeks. I guess like the counter stuff is I feel like we're bad at predicting that stuff collectively. You know, everyone was worried about that Jets Browns game last year, Thursday night, short week, outdoors, cold weather. And then the game went nuclear. And then the other thing too, a team like the Chiefs, who are the most veteran, the most playoff battle tested, late season battle tested team in the league. I guess I'm just like less concerned about it for them, that like they can turn things around on a short week. Andy Reid, Mahomes, good at game planning. So if there were a team where I'm like, they'll have it under control, like I would put it as the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. It's something that like I've spent 0 time thinking about.
Yeah.
And like, I'm definitely not avoiding Chiefs players because of it, but I was just wondering if it's something that I need to be thinking about.
Yeah, I think I guess like maybe if you were one of those people who were like, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes in every single draft, maybe you might want to be like, how could this go wrong? But if you're drafting mostly off of ADP, letting the board come to you, I'm just like not going to stress it. Let's recap this team here. We got 1 quarterback, Josh Allen. We got no running backs yet. We got a 0 RB build cooking here. We got our 5 wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens, and Hollywood Brown, and tight end Kyle Pitts. And literally values on every single player we have picked since Amon-Ra, who we took right at ADP.
So are we having to go Curtis Samuel here?
I'm curious, how you're thinking about that. We did miss out on Keon Coleman. I want to hear your thoughts on like how you think about this Bills stuff, how you think about Allen stacked versus unstacked.
So couple things. One, Allen had 15 rushing touchdowns last year. So I do think you have access to spike weeks without maybe a wide receiver going nuts. 2, just full transparency. I absolutely hate the Curtis Samuel price more than anything in the world. And 2 years ago, whenever I won the multiple tournaments on Underdog, a lot of those teams I drafted were like naked Patrick Mahomes round 5. So I'm probably a little bit biased. I'd be fine with Najee or Curtis. Honestly, whatever you want. I don't know the right answer. It's just, I know probably the right thing is to pick Curtis Samuel, but I'm an idiot and I never want to take him here.
I really don't like Shakir in a way where...
If you don't like Shakir, let's take him.
Let's do Samuel, and we can basically shut it down at wide receiver now. Yeah, I'm with you. We seem very aligned on a lot of these takes. Like Samuel has been a tough click. You can see my percentage here. I have 1.6% Curtis Samuel. And I do completely agree. The way Josh Allen can hit, it can be done on the ground. I also think in these pod dynamics, we got to finish 1 out of 16, 1 out of 16. We want to finish top 20 out of 500 plus teams. One of those weeks is probably going to involve a passing spike for Allen. Like he's probably not just going to rip off 3 straight 100-yard rushing games or whatever. So I do like having that one stack in there. Give us the 1 week Curtis Samuel goes off in the playoffs, and that's what differentiates us in that pod.
I will say also, I know obviously these little tiny stories have no influence really, but I did get 16th place in Best Ball Mania 2 years ago with a naked Daniel Jones. That was like the week that he had like a ton of rushing. It was the year that Cousins and Jefferson absolutely smashed weeks 15 and 16. It did nothing in week 17, and Daniel Jones dropped me like 30 points to with just on the ground. I know obviously those one-off little things don't matter, but
no. And I think what's nice is like we didn't force it. Like my issue is if like we panic, okay, Keon Coleman goes at pick 72 and we're sitting at 78 and we're like, oh, let's take Curtis Samuel right now because we got to have the stack. Like again, we took him past ADP, 5 picks past ADP. We let it come to us. We could have done the running back direction, but I think this sets up really well for us now. We are rocked up at wide receiver. We have the best quarterback in the game. We have an exciting tight end in Kyle Pitts. And now we're basically running back and tight end and obviously a second or third quarterback here for a while. So do you have a running back favorite here, or do you see something else on the board? I'm going to get rid of wide receivers.
I think we're for sure not taking Love, Dak. It really comes down to Brian Robinson, Javonte Spears. It seems like Javonte's the guy that's moving up draft boards at the moment.
Yeah, there's been some pretty big encouragement on him. P. Ryan having that rough week 1 preseason game. What is your let's take Javonte, and then let's get your thought on like that Denver backfield, because that has been one of the bigger riddles, I feel like, the past month or so.
So I have no idea. I was mixing in some estimate at the very end. Once he started getting drafted in every draft, it did become a little bit tougher to take him. He was a more interesting pick when he was like a unique selection. The thing is, I don't think it matters too much at the end of the day, because Denver does project out to be a bottom 5 offense in the league. So unless you think Denver surprises to the upside, I think these running backs may be usable, but in terms of expecting a league winner from a potential 2 to 3 man committee in one of the worst offenses in the league, it probably doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, I think, I saw some of the chatter from Benjamin Albright, who covers the Broncos, and was talking a lot about Javonte Williams' pass catching role, specifically if P. Ryan gets cut, where they're just going to almost fully lean on him, which was a little interesting to me because Jaleel McLaughlin is a pretty capable pass catcher. But it does seem like if there's a path for one of these backs to be the bell cow and just own the backfield, it is Javonte, because Estime doesn't quite have the 3-down skill set. Jaleel doesn't quite have it. P. Ryan does, but if P. Ryan's out of the picture, then it could just be the Javonte Williams show. So I like taking cracks at it, because this is a talent we were taking in the 2nd and 3rd round a couple years ago. This is a guy who people were chasing up into the 6th and 7th round last year. And if he is fully healthy, like the team suggests, Sean Payton raving about all the weight he lost, I mean, this is a really nice price to get a starting running back.
I know we're about to be on the clock. I do want to revisit like the Curtis Samuel pick that we made.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think people make the mistake with is in these underdog drafts, every player is priced for their stack. Every single person on Underdog, at least up until August, understands that they need to go through and get stacks. So Curtis Samuel going at the 7-8 turn there is exclusively because the Josh Allen team takes him. Pretty much. Samuel's had one season in his NFL career with more than 9.0 fantasy points per game. So if you were like the non-Josh Allen team to take Curtis Samuel at ADP, or there are a couple other players like that, I think Shakir's another great example. I think Shakir only goes where he is because of the Josh Allen build. So that is something to keep in mind in underdog drafts, is these guys being priced for the stack.
Yes, I think that's a really good point, especially the mid-tier. Once we talked about Jordan Addison. Once like that guy's off the board, it's a lot of stack dynamics at play there. Goddard hanging around on the board. This is just right at ADP. And then we got, running backs, Corum, Benson, Ford, Elliott, Dowdle, Eckler. What do you like?
All those running backs will make it back to us on the way back around. If we were trying to go through and follow the guide of the video at the very beginning, I think the pick's Goddard.
Yeah, let's do it. Literally my only issue with starts like this, and I love builds like this, I think they're fun, like being just so strong at basically every position except one. The only thing that I sometimes get panicked about is it takes our flexibility away, right? There's a really good wide receiver value or tight end value. Our hands are kind of tied. And yet, because there are so many, 0 running back targets, I think we can just make this work in a really fun way where we're just drafting running backs the rest of the way.
Which I have found myself more times than one stuck on the other side, praying to God that a wide receiver falls to me. And it's an ugly scene when it doesn't happen.
It definitely is. This is a weird room too, because and I say weird room, like a lot of my drafts, I stream them over on my other YouTube channel. A lot of people hop in. Everyone loves wide receivers, and you'll sometimes get discounts. Like Gus Edwards was going in the 130s on my stream yesterday. Nick Chubb was going in the early 130s. They go 113 and 114 here. So it ended up being an interesting dynamic where all of these running back prices seem just like slightly priced up. Pollard going a little higher, so that might be a dynamic we feel, but there's still just so many options.
One thing that I want to ask you is, do you do any slow drafts? This is my first year doing slow drafts, and I've just noticed that I'm going to get crushed in these rooms.
Really?
Slow drafts are tough.
Yeah. You know what? My Best Ball Mania portfolio, I'm doing them all fast drafts, mainly content type stuff. What I'm in a ton of weekly winners, slow drafts right now. And I'm trying to take advantage of the extra time. Like I like pulling up the schedule. I've been playing a lot for like early season, trying to win in those. But I hear you, right? Like people don't make the panic mistakes in slow drafts like they do in the fast drafts.
Yeah, and it just seems like, I don't know. I feel like drafting with the people in the slow drafts, it seems like they're sharper drafters than the fast drafts, which Mason, I've been doing a lot of maybe it's the specific contest I'm doing the slows in. I'm doing a lot of the slows on the sprint and the marathon right now.
Okay.
And it's tough. I don't see many people making mistakes at all.
Yeah. I mean, the draft fields are sharp. That's why it's like at least going in different formats, people maybe make more mistakes. People in the puppies and these, like everyone kind of knows the basic framework. You go into weekly winners, like that's a pretty early format, not a ton of data out, just 1 year. And so those are where I think you have a little bit bigger of an edge.
I already know if I tried weekly winners, I'm just getting absolutely crushed. So I've taken I drafted 0 weekly winner teams this year. I know I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm totally fine with Blake Corum or Trey Benson. I think either guy makes a lot of sense for this team.
Yeah, let's grab Blake Corum here. We have just a little correlation thing here. We add him as our second running back. How are you feeling about that Rams backfield? I know you like Kyren. You mix in Corum though at these prices.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think both guys are reasonably priced if you just assume that and according to sportsbooks, Rams are going to be a good offense this year. And it seems like these are the only 2 guys that you would have to worry about. We saw the amount of running back points that was scored last year with Kyren Williams. So I'm completely fine with both running back prices. I'm definitely heavier Kyren. One of my favorite starts this year, earlier in the offseason especially, was to just go wide receiver, Kyren Williams, elite QB tight ends, preferably Andrews, Lamar, and then wide receiver through the first 7.
Yeah, I like that a lot. If you guys are new here to the channel, I've been doing this draft series very similar, have them fill out the questionnaire with my guests, their favorite ways to attack these drafts, and then we hop in and try it. Most recently, I did one with Fareed Shaheed, who won Best Ball Mania 4. We did some wild stuff in that draft. You can check that out. Did one with Ron Stewart a few weeks back where we actually did a Josh Allen Kincaid team, slight spoiler alert there. And also I've been doing some evergreen videos, have a video out on the 9 breakout wide receivers for those year 1 and year 2 guys. My favorite picks in every round of Underdog drafts. So you guys can check those out on the channel. And Mason, what is your streaming schedule like right now? I know you're cranking out both videos and draft streams.
Streaming every night, pretty much. Streaming every night, video every day. Before I was doing, last year was nuts. Last year I streamed like 240 days in a row. And
ridiculous.
But I've decided that I'm going to be more like a normal person this year. So it's
well,
I didn't start doing the everyday drafts until like a month or 2 ago.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but if anyone can appreciate the grind, it's you. I enjoyed getting to watch I watched your Iron Man vlog a while ago.
Oh,
what was that experience like here? I don't want to get, too derailed from our hardcore football talk, but I was super impressed by that accomplishment.
It was awesome. It was my first time ever over to Europe. So it was really cool. Like my family went, I've been dating my girlfriend for like 4 or 5 years. Her family went and it was the first time like our parents had met. So it was like a really cool vacation, and then had like the big event. It was more like a celebration of all the training that I had done over the past year,
Yeah.
So it was one of the best experiences I've ever had.
That is awesome. Was super impressed by just a huge undertaking. I highly recommend watching Mason's vlog on that as well. I will link to that in the description. One interesting thing here, Mason, we do have Jared Goff falling. If we wanted to shut it down,
we 100% go Goff here and then don't draft another quarterback.
Let's do it. It's just such a nice price here at 139 to stack up. I mean, literally my only concern was like the running backs continue to fly off the board, but we're basically
going 7 running backs with this team. I'm sorry. We have to.
So we have 2 quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Jared Goff, 2 tight ends, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert. We got our 6 wide receivers, Amon-Ra, Nico, Brandon Ayuk, Pickens, Hollywood, Curtis Samuel, everyone at values, and our 2 running backs. People are going to look at this team and say, I love your quarterbacks. I love your wide receivers. I love your tight ends. A little bit worried about your running backs. Can we make this work, Mason?
I 100% think we can. It's going to be a 2-7-7-2. I think that we look for, if we can get like a Chuba Hubbard on the way back around to cover some early season production for us. And this is just the team. Oh, what if Kyren does get hurt? What if Blake Corum is the top 10 running back? And we just outscore everybody else at quarterback and wide receiver. I think this team could crush. Obviously, we need things to break our way, but this is something that I think I draft a little bit differently than a lot of people. I go into every Underdog draft with the assumption I'm about to lose $25. You know, about to lose $25. I'm going to enter in the draft as if everything is going to go my way. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I don't have the values that I need falling to me. Because if you look at like the distribution of payouts, you need everything to go your way if you were going to make a considerable amount of money. You know, so I kind of step into the draft room under the assumption that things are going to go my way. Sometimes the team will be garbage. But I think here we stepped into this room going, I guess we need running back values late. So we'll see if it happens.
Yeah. And I try to hammer that home too. Like for people, you know, if you're an average drafter and you put 150 entries into this contest, $3,750, your expectation would be to make the finals, the week 17 finals, once every 8 years. That's like what the math says. So yes, but I do think like, to your point, because some people might hear that, Mason, and be like, oh, I can just do reckless crap and just do whatever because it like doesn't matter. But you actually have a pretty strong humility approach to the market, to the ADP. You're both saying like, I understand I'm probably going to lose, but I'm also not just going to do wild shit because of that.
Oh, no, for sure. I'm going to go through and I'm going to take values early and try to have a unique combo and see if like, this is an example of like, if running back doesn't fall to us, our team's screwed. But if we hit on running backs later on, we could have one of the best teams in the field.
Chuba Hubbard goes one pick before us. I thought that was a great call by you. What else do you see here on the board at running back?
Marshawn Lloyd, I think, is undraftable at this point. Jaleel's kind of sliding down a bit. I think maybe Jalen Wright, with the assumption that Ray Davis may make it back if that was the next guy we were looking at.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. It is nice having two Bills, but yeah, let's keep playing the value game. That has been the theme here. Let's get Jalen Wright and see if we can get Ray Davis to come back. The other name I was eyeing that I think could be interesting, because we have these week 17 stacks, Detroit with the Ayuk bring back, and then Buffalo with the Jets. I think Braylon Allen could be a really interesting handcuff if something happened to Brees, and then we get that in the week 17 finals.
For sure. Yeah. This year is I think, specifically for Best Ball Mania, week 17 matters more than it did previously. Because when they had the regular season prize pool, I thought trying to optimize for week 17 bringbacks probably was not the move.
Yeah, it was this weird thing where it was like, it was still so top heavy though, where it's lot of the money came away. And I think the thing I always struggled with, I thought the regular season prizes were cool. I just had a hard time knowing how to like fully optimize for those without just like killing a team for the playoffs, you know, like, you load up on the early guys, the non-rookies, the non-injured guys, but then it's like, does this team have any juice for the playoffs?
Yeah. Which is frustrating because 2 years ago, I had like 3 teams inside the top 100 scores in Best Ball Mania, like for the regular season, something nuts.
Yeah.
And then the next year they did regular season. And the next year I just got absolutely crushed in Best Ball Mania.
I do think I've thought about this a few times this summer, that the worst feeling is going to be for the person who has the best team in the regular season at Best Ball Mania 5 and being like, the past few years, that was $1 million prize and I get literally nothing. And then you get bounced in the week 15 pod and you're like, God damn, I am going to be upset.
That was funny.
This has been a nice run out for us after we selected Jalen Wright, because only one other running back, Marshawn Lloyd, went here. So I hate to jinx it, but I think Ray Davis would be just so perfect for this team, needing a running back and getting one extra bill on this team. Yeah,
let's do it.
So we see the quarterbacks coming off the board. Have you done a lot of extreme zero RB teams like this? Because this is I'm a zero RB bro, but even some zero RB bros get comfortable with this extreme of a version.
I'm definitely not comfortable with this. This is never my plan stepping into a draft. My plan stepping into a draft is see what the values are at the beginning and then try to make the roster work through the rest of it. And I just think that this is where the values were for the beginning, and it kind of took us down this road.
Yes, and Ray Davis comes back. That seems awesome for us to get a correlated piece at the one position of need we have.
So you've been drafting a lot of Ray Davis this year?
I have. You can see here, I'm a 16.5%. I have been trying to get some more James Cook. The team seems pretty stoked on him. But just like the price on Ray Davis, I think there's a standalone role there with him potentially getting some of those goal line carries they were giving Latavius Murray. And then on top of that, if James Cook gets hurt, Ray Davis, I think, is such a smash. So to me, it's like picking up free money off the street when you get him in the 14th round.
Real quick, Roshan goes here. Obviously, Roshan's never going at this price point, but lately, I've just been throwing my hands in the air going, I have no idea what to do. I'll take Roshan around 18. Maybe it's my Texas bias. What are you thinking with the Bears backfield?
That is such a good question. I think Roshan is the most interesting to me because he does have some pass catching chops. And I don't know if it was just the Eagles kind of pigeonholing DeAndre Swift and not using him that way because Hurts doesn't check down, yada, yada. But if there's a guy that can just like take over the whole backfield, I think it's Roschon's skill set. And then there's still this weird murkiness with Khalil Herbert. Is he going to get cut? Is he going to get traded? Like, where's his spot on the team? It feels like Herbert and Swift competing for the early down stuff and Roschon having the third down stuff with maybe plus contingent upside. So I'm with you. I think Roschon's intriguing.
Okay, thank God. I needed some positive reinforcement there because I'm struggling. Are we just going to go Antonio Gibson?
Unless you want to do the Braylon thing.
We can go Braylon Allen. My only hesitation, and this is probably a dumb thing for me, is we have 3 rookie running backs at this point. And I always just like mental blocker. It probably doesn't matter, but I always just sit here and go, how many of these late round rookie running backs can realistically make an impact? But I'm completely fine going Braylon Allen if that's the guy you want.
Well, man, I'm with you too. Like we're going to need some production. Let's grab Braylon Allen. Let's stack these rookies. And here's the thing too, right? We have 3 more picks. I think we're circling Tank Bigsby. We got to try to hit at least, we've hit 2 of these, right? We got your bully tight end preference. I know it wasn't your favorite profiles, Pitts and Goddard. Everything else we've struggled to hit the way the draft is broke, but we could still get Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby makes sense for this team.
Let's do it.
But I do think that's a good call out. Like, what other kind of bankable production can we get? And maybe it's few and far between at this point. Like, as I scroll down, are there any other running back names that you think fit particularly well with our rookie heavy running back room?
Yeah, Tank Bigsby, Dameon Pierce. Maybe, let me see, because I know just right before we started recording, I saw something about Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, it sounded bad that we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon, guys, and it seems like he might be out for the season. That's how bad it's.
Then I vote. I mean, Eric Gray is going to be drafted in such a small percentage of drafts up until this point that I'd be fine taking Eric Gray, reaching on him around like 17, and then because Tank Bigsby more likely than not it's going to make it to us around 18. It won't matter.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. We can get Gray. The other kind of like just interesting names, I think, Dameon Pierce is basically the Tank Bigsby on the Texans, like the guy.
Yes, I 100% agree. Let's go Pierce if we can.
I'll put him in here. The other guy that I've been starting to, mix in, you mentioned kind of the low owned play with Gray, Jordan Mason just kind of coming on the radar now. I think he's kind of interesting, and we already have a San Francisco player. But yeah,
I've been taking Andre Miller here at the end lately. How bad is that?
Well, it's awesome if you weren't drafting him as much as I was before, because now you're getting him for free. I think he's appropriately priced in this range, like a good price. We're still talking about Kamara 1 foot out the door. Jamal Williams is God knows how old. They tried that last year. This team has to see what they have in their 3rd round pick in Kendre Miller at some point this season. Yeah. Here's another thing. If it's here on the board, do you ever do 2 players from the same backfield? Like, would you entertain Estime with Javonte?
100%. So I won the Big Dog 2 years ago. I have a horror story of almost winning it 3 years ago as well. But that team that I had 3 years ago almost won it with a Rojo Leonard Fournette combo.
Okay. And that was the nut combo where you got some big spikes from both of them, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We are on the clock. I just put all these guys in the queue ordered by ADP. We have 3 more picks. One of them is Tank Bigsby. Who do you think we select first?
Let's go. Who do you think is more likely to make it to us, Pierce or what's wide receiver, real quick? Any of these wide receivers stand out to you or no?
I think we got to rip running backs.
Okay. Let's go Dameon Pierce.
Let's do Dameon Pierce. I like that one too. Apparently, like having a good camp, and it seems like the situation, like we said, very similar to the Bigsby thing, where this offense is going to score points at the running back position. We also saw this team really like Dameon Pierce last year and quickly abandon him for Singletary. And I know this is a weird way to make the point of why I like Pierce, but I'm saying this team will have a quick hook if a running back isn't performing at the level they want. Like a lot of people would have said, oh, you're committed to Dameon Pierce. They're like, no, Singletary's our better running back right now. If Mixon struggles, if Mixon is inefficient, I don't think this team will hesitate to say, hey, Dameon Pierce has it again.
Well, hopefully for our team, that's the case. Yeah, the estimate, the thing, and I know this may be dumb. I just really don't want to sit here with 6 rookie running backs and Javonte Williams. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there are some diminishing returns, and the thesis we need for this team, right? We need Javonte to be a bell cow. We need him to own it. And if Estime's coming in, that's already kind of compromised. our best running back on this team. So I do think this was a spot to shy away from it. And yeah, people are going to laugh at this running back room. I don't think it's crazy. I mean, what happened to us is this room was way more running back heavy than a lot of the drafts I've done. And so generally you have one other guy in here. Like I'll have a Chase Brown, I'll have a Tony Pollard, but like we just were not able to sneak that in the way this running back room broke. And so now we basically have to find a hit within this running back room, but I think we can do it. I really like how this is turning out.
Well, Pete, here's what you say. Here's a little tidbit from someone who drafts bad teams on live streams every day. We're trying to turn $25 into $1.5 million. Some things need to go our way. Maybe we need Brees Hall to go down in training camp for Braylon Allen to turn out to win us what we need.
Okay. We know we're going to do tank. We got 15 seconds here. Mason, Kendre, Eric Gray. Who's the other?
Wait, are we going 8 running backs on this team?
Oh, hang on. We should have a talk.
Take DeMarcus Robinson. Just grab us a wide receiver.
Hang on. I'm going to take Tank Bigsby real quick, just because I think that's a good point. Here's the thing, Mason. I think this team might need 8 running backs.
No. What this team needs is an injury to one of these other guys at the very beginning of the season. That's the only way we're winning it. And that's what I'm saying. Like whenever I draft teams, I understand that more likely than not, we're going to lose, right? We need something dramatic to happen to win 1.5 million. So,
okay.
If you look at any underdog data point from the past 4 years, taking 8 running backs is just impossible. Taking 7 running backs has never worked out. We're already betting on an outlier scenario.
Here's what I guess this would be my only pushback. I would call this pick a true luxury pick because I think structurally where we need to be at every position. We got the elite quarterback, 2 QBs, 2 good tight ends. We took 6 or 7 wide receivers in the top 100 picks. So I would say like we are covered everywhere, and you could justify a third or whatever, an extra at any of these 4 positions.
If this was a different tournament, I think I'd agree with you. Specifically in Best Ball Mania, I don't think I can get there.
So how would you like to maximize this last selection? Like what would be, is it a 7th wide receiver?
Yeah, I think it's the 7th receiver.
Okay. Let's pull this up here. I mean, stacking candidate wise, not a lot to like unless you have anything deep on Detroit or any of these. I would say like we should probably take like a big swing here, like because we do have such a good wide receiver room, we don't have to, as you might say, eat our vegetables with this pick. I think we can get kind of high upside swing.
Well, you want to scroll down a bit and we'll try to find someone here.
Let's scroll down.
Like I said, I am an absolute clown drafting these round 18 players. So I would just love if you just take it straight up. Let us do what you do.
Well, let me ask you a question here. This would be another Rams piece. I think Jordan Whittington is like one of the best late round clicks
Welcome Horns. I had a class with him at UT. Let's go.
You had okay. Now I want to get this. Okay, I'll give the quick selling point on Whittington and just talking him up. I think he could challenge DeMarcus Robinson for that 3 spot by the end of the season. It feels weird to think like the Puka Nacua Lightning could strike twice in the same spot, but McVay is just saying this guy is so far along right now. And we've been talking about how often are these guys drafted in these contests. This guy's been going in the 15th, 16th round of my live stream drafts, and he's going to be sub 10% rostered in this contest. So that's my selling point. But now I need to know about Jordan Whittington in the classroom. What are we looking at here?
What's crazy is it was like my junior year. He was still in high school and he was like a 5-star prospect going to Texas. And I got 2 degrees. I got 1 in biology, 1 in exercise science. My exercise science one, I was just in a bunch of blow off classes. Like a 7 kid like walked in. He like started going like while high school of like, I think it was or something like that. I saw him once at the field during COVID. And I didn't recognize him anymore because the man was built like a linebacker. I thought he was a middle linebacker and he plays wide receiver.
Incredible. Well, I love that you have the boots on the ground tie in there with Jordan Whittington. And we couldn't get Roshan, so we had to get at least one Texas player there for you. All right, I'm going to recap this team, and then I want to get your final thoughts here on how we did. You know, we started out with a plan. We had our preferences, but to Mason's credit, we let the draft come to us, and we built a super fun, high upside, volatile, fragile team, and that's what you do in Best Ball Mania. Josh Allen, Jared Goff at quarterback. We got 7 running backs, deep breath, Javonte Williams, Blake Corum, Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, Braylon Allen, Dameon Pierce, Tank Bigsby. We got 7 wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens, Hollywood Brown, Curtis Samuel, and Jordan Whittington. And our 2 tight ends, Kyle Pitts and Dallas Goedert. How did we do, Mason?
I think it's a very unique team where if we have 1 or 2 running backs breaking right for us, it has a ton of upside.
Love it. Any other parting shots here, Mason? Really appreciate you making time in your busy schedule to hop on the Deposit Kingdom channel. I look forward to getting your Venmo to send you $750,000 as your credit for shipping Best Ball Mania with me on this team.
I will send you that PayPal information real quick. What's funny is 2 years ago when I won a couple tournaments on Underdog, I tried to withdraw and I gave them my PayPal thinking that they were going to send the money through PayPal, which I'm sure that they do if it's like a lower amount, you know? And then I just got like an email the next day going like, what do you give us your bank for? Like, why do you think we're going to PayPal you this, you know?
Well, thank you guys again for tuning in. If you are new to Underdog here at this point, you can always sign up with promo code Pete, get up to that $250 deposit match. They'll also get you a pick'em special as well. And yeah, we'll have more videos out on the channel. Check out Fantasy Flock, check out Mason if for some reason you haven't already. Really appreciate Mason's time and you guys tuning in today. So for Mason, for Underdog, I'm Pete. We'll see you guys next time in the Deposit Kingdom.